Hello, everyone. My name is Leah Davenport, and I serve as our Senior Marketing Manager here at Pursuant. And I am thrilled to be joined today by our own Ryan Carpenter, as well as the one and only Reggie Rivers of the Gala team. So, welcome, Ryan and Reggie.
Great to be
Thank
here.
you. How are you?
I'm doing well today. Happy Monday. Um, So, Reggie, if you don't mind, I'm just going to kick things over to you. Um, we have had a couple of conversations with you over about the last year or so. We did a podcast episode last year, kind of at the beginning of the pandemic when the big pivot happened and nonprofits kind of scrambled to figure out how to replace lost revenue from galas and events. And your company, the Gala team, you kind of had the same thing happen. You had a couple of nonprofit clients who were saying, "Hey, we've had to cancel our galas or make an adjustment. How can we still move forward in this Zoom at home environment and still meet with our major donors and get those gifts that we need to hit our fundraising goals and resource our mission?" And so we then did a webinar in July that was focused on, let's follow up on your 4 months into this virtual gala environment. And we also brought in Ryan in that conversation to kind of look at, all right, how do you make sure that you are inviting the right people, that you're following up with the right people who are most engaged and connected with your mission? So now it is February 1, 2021. What have we learned since July?
I know, man, so much time has passed. And, as you said, when COVID first hit, we had 34 events drop off our calendar for April and May. And so my company, we're a benefit auctioneering company, and we help people with their night of event fundraising. And so I say that the three biggest lessons that we've learned since COVID-19 hit is, number one is you just got to go for it. That, in spring of 2020, there were a lot of nonprofits that were sitting back saying, well, we're going to wait a few weeks and maybe things will be better in the summer. Then in the summer, they're saying, well, we're going to wait a couple of months and maybe things are going to be better in the fall. And then in the fall, they're saying, well, we're going to wait a little bit. Maybe it'll be better in spring of 2021. And now they're saying, well, we're going to wait and maybe it'll be better in the fall of 2021. And what we've seen is that you just have to go for it. For the organizations who just said, we're going to go virtual, we're going to make this attempt, then they get on the road and they're able to overcome whatever challenges they bump into along the way, and they find success with a virtual gala. The second thing that we've learned over this period is your donors are expecting you to go virtual, like every other important thing in their lives. Your donors, if you think about your key donors, the ones who you are their favorite nonprofit, they're working from home on Zoom, Skype, WebEx, whatever. They prefer to go into the office, but they can't. Their job is important, so their job has gone virtual. Their kids are at home learning at home. They prefer to have their kids in school, but the schools aren't open, so the kids are learning at home because everything that's important has gone virtual. They're doing virtual happy hours, virtual visits with grandma, virtual church services, virtual workouts in the basement, and all because the things that are important to them have all gone virtual. So now when their favorite nonprofit says, we're not going to hold a virtual gala because we're going to wait until the pandemic is over, they're thinking, well, why aren't you? Yeah, it's a lot. I know a lot of nonprofits are worried our donors aren't going to understand why we're going virtual. And I think it's the opposite. I think your donors aren't going to are going to wonder why you're not going virtual. So that's point number two. And then finally, point number three, pre-event development work has always been important, but now in this environment, it is so much more important. We are seeing from our clients, we did 61 virtual galas in 2020. And of those events, the ones that had the conversations with their major donors in advance, really knew how to identify those people and have those conversations and get the ball rolling, those are the ones who had great success. They tended to line up 50 to 60% of their total donations before the event even started. And that created this great momentum. And then they exceeded the fundraising raising goals that they had for themselves. So those are the three things I think that are the biggest lessons that we've learned in this past year.
Thanks, Reggie. I really want to dig into that last point here in a minute. But before I do, I just wanted to kind of dig into this idea with you about what's the format you've seen work the best for these virtual events? I think I probably heard you at one point talk about brevity. It's important to keep them short. If we're in this all virtual environment, as you just said, we get tired of staring at screens all day. And so, kind of before we get into that last bit about that pre-development work that's so important, what are just some kind of general tips and tricks you can offer about how to maximize the actual event experience?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. And if you think about a typical gala is like 4 hours long. You have cocktail hour that starts at 5:30, and you're wrapping things up and start dancing at 9:30. Well, that's you're not going to take your typical in-person event and try to squeeze it into a virtual format. Your virtual event should be 30 to 45 minutes ideally. We've seen a few go to an hour. And if you have enough variety in your content, you could go to an hour. But really, that's about the extent of it. You don't want to try to compete with people's attention spans like that. And and you don't have to be that entertaining. Like some of the nonprofits we talk to, they really feel like, oh, well, we've really got to entertain people. We've really got to make it fun. We've really got to somehow replicate that networking experience. And we've seen that, yeah, that it's hard for you to compete now that you're on their computer screen. You're going to have a hard time competing with whatever they like to watch on YouTube or with whatever Netflix series that they're addicted to. And that's not why they're tuning in. I always use the analogy of people don't go to a third grade production of Romeo and Juliet because they love Shakespeare. They go because they love those kids. And people who come to your virtual gala, they're not coming because they're looking for how you can entertain them. They care about your mission. So focus on your mission. Share what your progress on your mission. Share the importance of what you're doing. Let them know how they can help you, and they will respond. And so we've seen our nonprofits have a lot of success with events that are 30 to 45 minutes long. And then one other point on this, there's basically four different types of virtual events. There's the virtual gala at home, where everybody is in their own homes on a Zoom call, like we are today, on their own computers. The second type is a virtual gala in a studio. We've got 8 to 10 people in a studio, and you're on the stage, kind of broadcasting like normal, but there's no audience there. The third, which I think we might get to in late 2021 or early 2022, is a virtual gala with pods, where you've got maybe a virtual gala in a studio happening, but at each board member's house, there's a group of 8 to 10 people who are watching it together. And then finally, there's the hybrid event where you have a in-person audience and a virtual audience, and you're going to appeal to both of them. And I expect that in 2022, hybrid events are going to become all the rage.
Mm-hmm.
And you would say beyond as well, right? You don't see that really going away at any point.
Yeah, I really don't. And I think that the hybrid events they're going to come in three different forms that are really based on who's your audience. If your in-person audience is your focus, then I'd say that's like a Broadway musical style, where the experience is meant to be for the people who are in the audience. Their sight lines have to be protected. Their sound for them has to be perfect. Everything is set up for them. The second type would be where your audience at home is most important. That's more like the Saturday Night Live model. If you're at Saturday Night Live in person, yeah, your sight line might be impaired. The cameras, the cue cards might get in your way. You see the back end of the sausage making. You see the set changes during commercial breaks, and you hear the director yelling things out when you're not on air. And so that's the second type, which nonprofits might do if their major donors are at home and they've just got a few people in the room for energy. But then the third type, which, Ryan, to your point, that I think is going to be forever with us, is where both audience, the virtual and the in person, are equally important. And so that's more like an NFL football broadcast, where the in-person experience is one thing. The at-home audience has a play-by-play guy, color commentator, instant replays, multiple camera angles, graphics, all of this stuff that's designed just for them who are watching at home. And I see that being the long-term future of hybrid events in the nonprofit world.
That's great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So many ways I could take this conversation that are really compelling. One of which is just this idea that, like, increasingly nonprofits and organizations are sort of the marketing and fundraising arms have to function a lot like a kind of traditional media company. But I think that'll send us down a rabbit trail. So I want to kind of come back around to this idea that, Ryan, I'd love for you to weigh in on is, who's attending these events. One of
Sure.
the beautiful things about a hybrid event or a full virtual event is that you're not limited to the size of the room, and so you could potentially invite your entire file. And in some way, I think that is a tremendous benefit of a virtual event. But you still need to find ways to create that white glove treatment, especially in follow up for those most valuable supporters who in the past were maybe the main attenders of your galas and in-person events. So Ryan, how do nonprofits kind of make those decisions and prioritize people?
Yeah, so when we first got together and spoke about virtual events in July, we made some assumptions on who you should consider inviting because, again, you can open up the audience and the attendee list. You still want to focus on who the primary people are, as Reggie has mentioned, but that doesn't mean you can't invite more people. It's virtual. You can send it to thousands of individuals. But we also had some thoughts on who do you want to be there? Who else do you want to invite? And so, blending in wealth and affinity for your type of cause from those prospects potentially that could make that upgrade to become a meaningful, high value donor. Also, channel preference. We talked about understanding the people that were comfortable online, that had the technical aptitude to log on to your event. You wanted to reach those people. That's the priority. You wanted people that had prospects to upgrade their support, that had an affinity, and also are going to be able to log in seamlessly and be able to attend this event. Now, what's really interesting, since that time, this 6-7 months, we've had a number of our clients hold virtual events, and the individuals that supported those events and made gifts, there's some key trends that we're seeing that are both very intuitive, but also, do stand out. They are slightly younger, and that speaks to people's comfort level online. I know everybody's grandparent has been Zooming for almost a year now. That doesn't mean they love it or are likely to take the opportunity to join your event. They also have more wealth, and we're seeing a higher average gift rate, and that's pretty common. Individuals that give online typically give a greater average gift. And so if they're giving at a higher level, you can make the next assumption that, okay, they do on average have a higher net worth or higher wealth level. Um, and then lastly, we do see that 90% of these virtual event donors do have a preference to engage digitally. And that's compared to the total file amongst our clients, where you see about 2/3 of your file have a likelihood to prefer the digital channel preference. We do that through our Giving DNA platform, where we can have these insights provided. You can also look at it historically, how have they engaged with you, whether it's through making online gifts or attending other things virtually, responding to emails. That can help you understand channel preference. And because again, it's intuitive, but now we have the results to back it, where those people that have a digital preference, they're going to be more comfortable. To Reggie's point, they're gonna be comfortable being at the virtual event, listening, watching, taking things in, whereas somebody that doesn't have a preference to engage digitally, they just feel a little bit unbalanced, and that's not going to give them the experience they want.
It's funny, Ryan. You mentioned our grandparents are getting more comfortable. My parents just bought their first laptop ever. My
That's
my
great.
79-year-old dad, 78-year-old mom, talking to my sister, getting their laptop set up, and the entire reason is so they can Zoom with their family. They've been using Zoom on their phones, and they're like, "We need a laptop." And yeah, it is crazy how much of the audience is getting more and more adapted to being in part of a virtual experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. I help my father every Sundays with his various laptop questions. Um, so I appreciate
Yeah,
his desire to learn and get comfortable, but it's
yeah.
Sunday afternoon. He's coming over with a laptop.
Well, and what's interesting about all that is I almost wonder, like, how many nonprofits, when they are gearing up for these like online events, might include some sort of like rudimentary, technology guide. Like, how to help your grandparents or anything, people in your life who are generous people, who have engaged in with an organization in the past, but might be a little bit behind the curve when it comes to technology. I wonder if there are resources that nonprofits are starting to produce to kind of help ease everyone's way into this new reality.
Yeah, I think that that's very smart to do that. And I think that nonprofits should be changing their messaging a little bit to their supporters to say, to help their supporters promote this charity to their friends and family. That in the past, you might not, if you're a Denver based nonprofit, for example, I live in Denver, you're a Denver based nonprofit, let's say you're a private school, you might not really work. One private school is a bad example. You probably would work hard to get the grandparents in, but you're an organization. You might not be working that hard to get your donors to tell their extended families about what it is they're doing. But now that COVID has hit, like I have one of my nieces, she sent out on Facebook and tagged all of our family members. And she's a elementary school teacher. She said, "I'm trying to build the library at my school, and for my birthday present, I would love it if you guys would help me purchase 33 books." And she had picked out all these books that she wanted. Well, she ended up with like 133 books because everybody in the family just jumped in and did it. And I think, and I don't know anything. I don't know anything about her school. I don't even know what town it's in. I don't know anything. I just know I love my niece. And I think that more and more nonprofits are going to discover in this virtual setting, we can lean more on the love that the family members have for whoever it is who you're connected with. And we just have to message it, teach your people how to message it properly to their friends and family.
Hmm.
I love that. That's
I'm
great. That's really something I'm going to take with me to my clients.
For sure.
Right.
Well, and it's something that sparked for me is a friend of mine and I have recently been discussing the way that platforms like Instagram, and companies on Instagram, like for-profit companies, leverage the platform to grow their audiences. And one thing that is kind of interesting that you might know is that we're all kind of familiar with like the Instagram influencer, the person with thousands and thousands of followers, and brands will pay them very handsomely to post about their brand, their product or something to all of their followers. But what brands have actually been discovering is almost more powerful on Instagram and is far cheaper, is to ask regular people with a few hundred followers to post about their restaurant, their product, their whatever it is that they want, because it seems a lot more authentic coming from someone who's just a regular old social media user. And even if you're only going to be picking up a few tens of customers from that outreach, it seems much more organic and authentic, and is a lot cheaper because all you have to do is give the person, a small kickback or coupon or something that's not nearly as expensive as getting like Kim Kardashian to show off your new purse or something. But anyway, all that to say, the thing that I take away from that is we often, I think, don't um, fully comprehend or appreciate the amount of influence that some people in your file who are avid social media users, who are avid digital users, actually have to spread your brand's message, to spread the
Yeah.
cause of your nonprofit. And so, Ryan, I just want to kind of tie this back into technology. Like we can find people who are high social media, or who are regular social media users, and they might be an additional group of people that you would target with a message about an event like this.
Yeah, so we've actually been doing something very similar, using social media data to identify who our highly active users are, who our quote unquote influencers are, which we just categorize people that are really heavy users that have followings as influencers. They are not a celebrity. They could be if you have a celebrity on your file, but that's not the intent. And
Hmm.
so we've been doing it for things like Giving Tuesday, identifying all of your heavy active users and influencers on file, and then emailing them a message to say, we'd love for you to share this. If you could share this post. And we have some great results, great stories, where we're seeing a lot of individuals also give right? Without being asked, which is something that you can often see through pure cultivation. But also we are acquiring new donors. They're being exposed to a new network of people that they never would have before, and it's bringing in new donors as well. So that's something we've seen for Giving Tuesday primarily, but it could certainly be something that you could position through these events. I think it's a great idea.
Mm, yeah. Well, we just have a few minutes left, and so Reggie, I want to return things to you. Um, you know, in terms of the pandemic, we know that it seems like mass vaccination, even though it's underway, is a few months off. And so we've already kind of talked about this idea that going into later 2021, 22, it looks like hybrid events are here to stay. Um, so let's kind of land the plane in this idea of pre-development work. Could you open up a little bit more about some of the things that clients you're working with are doing to cultivate those donors ahead of the event and make sure that the virtual event itself is kind of the capstone of a fundraising effort and it isn't the whole piece of it? And how can fundraisers structure their campaign in such a way to set it up for maximum efficacy?
Right. Well, I think that you use the proper word, which is campaign. I think that in the initial phases, the virtual galas went really well because all of the work had already been done. They were planning an in-person gala and they had to pivot at the last minute, but all their sponsorships were already sold, all their tickets were already sold, all their donors already had an appointment with them for that night. So everything went really well. And then we got into the summer and the early fall and things lagged off a little bit. It wasn't quite as easy, and it became clear that that work that they had done in the for those spring events, that work just allowed them to still be successful and virtually. So then the fall group started doing a campaign where they would identify, they'd look at the last couple of years, who gave to us, which board members do we know are going to give a gift every year, and I need to reach out to them and have a phone call or get on a Zoom call with them and tell them what we're doing. We're doing this virtual event. We really need your help and support, and getting them pre-committed before the event. And so you're not, if you hold a virtual gala and you think that money is going to fall out of the sky, you're just going to open up virtually and people are going to tune in digitally and say, hey, yeah, here's 10 grand. Yeah, it doesn't happen like that. It's the old school blocking and tackling of understanding who your donors are, why they're committed to you, not just how much money they have, but why they have an affinity for you. What is it that they care about, and then having a conversation with them and getting them lined up. And so we've seen quite a few of our nonprofits have really great outcomes when they turn this fundraising into a campaign that culminates with their virtual gala.
Hmm. Yeah. Ryan, anything to add before we wrap up?
Not really. I think just as I had mentioned, my perspective about who you want to identify, certainly also post-event analysis, who attended, who
Mhm.
supported you, who made a gift. Because again, much like any campaign or event you have, where you're then going to understand who the donors are, you want to continue to do that here. You may have, a new donor may have joined on that has real high potential to be a major supporter down the road. And so next year, when you do the hybrid, you want to invite them to be part of that in-person audience. So that's something I would just continue to do that. Um, and, as well as the invite list too.
Mhm. Awesome. Well, Ryan, Reggie, thank you so much for joining us today. This was a really interesting discussion. I always love it when we can sit down and kind of pull up our telescopes and look down the road a little bit. And so just thank you both for your time and for sitting down to open up some of these topics for our listeners and viewers. And I look forward to the next time we sit down and discuss our learnings.
Thank you, Leah.
Yeah, great. Reggie, always great when we get to meet and speak and talk shop. And Leah, thanks as well.